At 3:47 a.m., my heat was dead. My breath was smoke in my own kitchen, and 25 headlights slid across my window in the middle of a Detroit blizzard. Someone hammered my front door like they had a key. If it were you, would you open it? I was counting $7.32 with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, trying to figure out if that buys diapers or milk when prices feel like a dare. The wind pushed on the old windows, the fridge hummed like a tired animal, and my 2-year-old Marcus slept in a little fort of blankets by the stove because his bedroom heater had died 2 weeks earlier. I was 32, going on 40 in the mirror, 3 jobs down in 2 months, and a phone full of messages from people who wanted money I didn't have. You know what I mean? That bone-deep kind of tired that doesn't rinse off in a shower. I had tried everything to make it look like hope lived in that house. I set up folding tables, wrote a menu on poster board, cooked my mama's soul food, with the secret blend she swore could save a life. Some people slowed to read it, then they saw my face in the glass and walked faster. One neighbor read the whole sign and told me straight-faced she didn't eat food from people like that. Do you think that's fair? Then the power snapped off like a door lock. Darkness got heavy. I lit 3 candles, turned the gas on low, set a pot to boil to make the air feel warm even if it wasn't. I played it off for Marcus as camping, because sometimes you have to lie soft to keep a kid brave. That's when I heard it. A sound you don't forget even once. A Harley in winter air, then another, then too many to count until the floorboards under my feet started to hum. 3 knocks. Not panicked, not polite. Deliberate. I crept to the window, scraped a line through frost with my fingernail, and counted helmets. Leather jackets crusted with snow, a half circle of men on my tiny patch of lawn, the kind of sight that makes you check your memory for mistakes. The biggest one took off his helmet and looked straight at the glass beard shot with gray eyes, sharp and human. "Ma'am, we need help," he called through the storm. "We're freezing out here. We got a man hurt." My mind threw headlines at me, every warning anybody ever gave me about strangers at night, about being a woman alone, about bikers and trouble. Then another voice cut through the noise, my mother's voice from the old days, low and firm, "Baby girl, when somebody's in trouble, you help, because one day you might be knocking." "How many are you?" I called, forehead on the cold wood. 25. "We stick together. Please." Fear didn't leave when I unlocked the deadbolt. It just sat in the back seat while I opened the door to the kind of cold that steals your breath. The big man kept both hands where I could see them. "I'm Mike," he said, voice rough with weather. "We won't forget this." Behind him, a younger guy leaned on another rider, jeans torn and dark with blood at the thigh, face already that paper color pain makes. "Get in," I said. "All of you. Before we all freeze where we stand." They moved quiet, careful, like they'd been taught how to enter a room that isn't theirs. Boots on the mat. Helmets to the side. Nobody touched a thing they didn't need. Marcus popped his head over the blanket fort and locked eyes with a rider who dropped to a knee and wiggled his fingers, a granddad smile under a storm-beaten face. "Tommy," he said soft, and my shoulders fell an inch. "Got any first aid?" Mike asked, chin tipping toward the bleeding kid. "Name's Danny. Hit ice 10 miles back. Roads are gone." I had a plastic tub with gauze and tape and antiseptic, the kind of kit a mama with a nurse for a mother keeps, even when life is loud. I cut denim with kitchen scissors, rinsed, pressed, wrapped, the motions coming back like a song muscle remembers. "He needs a doctor," I said, "but he needs pressure and warmth now." The room answered without words. Blankets rolled out. Someone handed me a clean towel like they were born to triage. 2 men drifted into my kitchen and opened cabinets without rummaging, as if they had been exactly here 100 times, and the smell that came back a few minutes later didn't belong in a blizzard. Fried chicken, onions, carrots hitting butter, my seasonings blooming in oil. One rider took the lid off the skillet and breathed like he had just stepped into church. "Smells like a place," he said. Yeah, that happened. We ate on the floor, and at the tiny table, paper plates on our knees, the storm throwing itself against the house and losing. They weren't what the headlines had taught me. Veterans, most of them. Army, Marines, Navy. Men who never quite found the landing strip when they came home, so they found each other instead. Mike told me about a little girl named Emily, 6 years old, blonde pigtails, leukemia, taking more than one life the day it took hers. He told it like a man who had learned to talk around a hole. I told him about a husband who left 8 months ago to find himself, and how it turned out he was in Tennessee with a waitress and no child support to speak of. Mike didn't flinch. "Sometimes the breaking isn't your fault," he said. "Sometimes it just comes for everybody in the room." Around midnight, Danny started burning up. I felt it before the thermometer confirmed it. The men woke like a unit, hands half ready for a fight they couldn't see. "What do we do?" someone asked, not hiding the fear. "We keep him cool and drinking," I said, and I heard the steadiness in my own voice like a stranger. "Cool cloths, tea with honey murmurs and steady hands. Watch the breathing, look down the throat for the bad signs." He mumbled "Mama once lost in the fever," and I squeezed his hand and said, "I'm here, baby, hang on." Pattern interrupt. That's the moment the house stopped being mine and theirs and became ours just for a night. Dawn lifted the edge of the dark, and with it the fever broke like a storm, ending sweat, slick on Danny's forehead, color coming back to his lips, pulse not so fast. We had eggs and bad coffee and that deep, quiet relief you hear in people who aren't afraid to show they were scared. Then they stood, all 25, and they thanked me one by one like a ritual. Mike pressed an envelope into my palm. I tried to push it back, and he shook his head. "This isn't charity. You rendered care, we pay our debts. One more thing. Your food. Don't quit on it. Good food finds its people." They stepped outside into a sky the color of stainless steel and rode away, taillights winking like embers until the street swallowed them. Here's what nobody tells you about miracles. The silence after can feel like a vacuum. The house felt too big again, the table stretched, the kitchen echoing. The money in the envelope was enough to fix the heater, catch up the bill, fill the pantry. But customers didn't appear just because hope did. Marcus caught a cold, wouldn't eat, and the old panic climbed back up my spine. I walked to the nearest porch with him on my hip and asked for children's medicine and milk, and the neighbor who had called me trouble shoved me off her steps. I hit the ice hard, Marcus screaming shame burning more than my elbow. Do you think I should have said something? Or was keeping my mouth shut the only smart move I had? "Hey, you two," a voice called, warm as toast in January. "Bring that baby over here." I turned and saw a small house I swear I'd never really noticed, and a woman with silver hair and the kind of eyes people trust without asking. "I'm Martha," she said, holding the door. "I've got exactly what you need." She had an old stethoscope, a thermometer. You flick milk warmed with a little honey, medicine measured like a prayer, a bag of groceries that felt like more than food. "Why are you helping us?" I asked, not sure I deserved it. She thumbed a small silver necklace and said, "Because when you've been alone in a storm, you don't let other people stand outside. Kindness comes home if you let it." I walked back holding Marcus and that bag like it was the first day of a new plan. 3 days later, the floor started shaking again. Not a metaphor. My coffee slid half an inch. At first I thought truck, then construction, then I knew. Marcus scrambled onto a chair, eyes huge. "Mama, big bikes!" he shouted. I pulled the curtain, and the end of Maple Street had vanished. Motorcycles as far as I could see, chrome and leather and color rolling into formation like they were rehearsing for a parade the world would remember. The thunder of 1,500 engines came down to silence all at once, when the front ranks killed their bikes, a silence so sudden it made my ears ring. Mike walked up my path with Tommy and Jake and a wave of people behind them from Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, names stitched into patches that meant brotherhood to them and trouble to my neighbors. Those neighbors had come outside clutching phones and cardigans. The woman who pushed me off her steps stood on her perfect lawn face, pale. Mike stopped at my steps and spoke like he was telling me the weather. "We told you we don't forget. We take care of the people who take care of us." Tommy handed me a thick envelope. "Debts repairs a real kitchen," he said, almost shy. And then a ripple went through the crowd. Tools came out, trucks unloaded, electricians popped panels, plumbers traced lines, a woman with a clipboard and graying hair, Sarah from Chicago, smiled like she'd been waiting all week to say this. "We'll have you open by tomorrow night." I laughed and cried at the same time. Tomorrow, stick around, because what happened next will blow your mind. Here's where the movie twist would feel fake if I hadn't lived it. Danny walked up with a toolbox and a limp but color in his cheeks, wearing a silver necklace I hadn't seen before, old and engraved. "That's beautiful," I said without thinking. He touched it the way you touch something you never take off. From the back of the crowd, I heard a sound so sharp it cut through saws and chatter, one gulped breath that held 30 years. "Danny," a woman's voice trembled, "is that you?" We turned as one. Martha stood with both hands on her mouth, eyes on that necklace like it was a map. Danny froze. "Ma'am, do we know each other?" he asked, already afraid of the answer, and hoping anyway. She took one step, and the street seemed to tilt with her. "When you were 7, there was a fire at Riverside," she said, voice tearing. "You have a birthmark behind your left ear shaped like a crescent. We got separated in the smoke." His hand flew to the spot before his mind got there. "How do you know that?" he whispered. Martha's tears were falling now. "Because I'm your mother, and I have been looking for you for 30 years. Danny turned the pendant, and the back showed the words she named before we saw them. "Love never dies." They covered the last 3 steps between them, like they were running downhill, grabbed each other, and the sound that came out of them made grown men rub their faces and look at their boots. Tell me that's luck. Or tell me sometimes the world puts people where they need to be, exactly when they need to be there. After that, the day moved like a river. Crews split and swarmed. My old house gave up its stubborn and let people love it into something new. Wiring got safe. Pipes got right. A range big enough to feed a church slid into place like it belonged. A walk-in cooler hummed like a promise. Tiles went down that would mop clean. Lights brightened the corners where my doubt used to sit. Sarah parked me at a tiny table with a kid already building our social accounts photos of the storm night, next to a short video of 25 plates on my floor. "You'll have a line down the block," she said, typing, like she was mixing speed with sugar. Mike sat across from me later and slid a different envelope, this one heavy with paper that sounds like it costs money. "Deed," he said, simple as that. "Paid in full. It's yours, Keisha. No landlord, no rent, no threat." I did the poor person reflex and tried to say no, and he shook his head, gentle but steady. "You can and you will. You can't build a business while you're braced to move." The neighbor who pushed me walked up then every step like she had to ask permission from her own pride. She apologized, the kind that uses words like ashamed and wrong, the kind that makes your shoulders slump because now you have a choice. I thought about my son watching about the neighborhood I wanted him to grow up in, and I said everyone's welcome at Mama Keisha's kitchen. That made some people nod and some people frown. Which side are you on? Do you think forgiveness is strength, or does it let people off too easy? By sunset, the sign was up. Mama Keisha's kitchen. Simple, cheerful, a little drumstick in the corner like a wink. Somebody started a grill, and my neighbors who'd never really looked at each other passed potato salad like cousins. Marcus tore around in a tiny leather vest Tommy had made that said, "Little Angel" on the back, king of the block for a night. He ran to me with ketchup on his cheek and announced I can crack eggs now, and Mike caught my eye and said, just like his mama. I could have cried from nothing more than that word. We opened the next day and didn't sit down for hours. Oil-talking plates, flying orders called hands moving in the dance kitchens teach you. Critics wrote nice things. A TV crew asked me to say the phrase "secret blend," and I laughed because the only secret we've got is this. We cook like we mean it, and we treat people like they belong. A month later, a bus pulled up with 40 kids' lunch on us because it felt right to start a tradition of full bellies and good stories. 6 months in Maple Street looked like a neighborhood again, chalk drawings on sidewalks, folks waving with their whole arm, people who had stayed inside for years, bringing folding chairs to the curb just to talk. It wasn't perfect. Friars break inventory runs short. P&L sheets turn mean, and there were nights I leaned on the walk-in door with my forehead and breathed until the headache slowed. But every time someone showed. A rider with a wrench, Danny at the back door before dawn, with produce and purpose, Martha next to me in the kitchen, saying the biscuits need 2 minutes less, a neighbor bringing cornbread like an apology you can eat. Mike kept coming by not because the story needed an epilogue, but because grief doesn't check a calendar, and family isn't just blood. Sometimes when the last table is paying, and the room is starting to breathe again, I stand at the front window and watch the street that once kept its head down. I replay the first night, the wind, the knocks, the math that didn't add up, and I ask myself the question people keep asking me in the comments. Was opening the door brave or reckless? Would a safer person have waited for police? Are we telling the wrong story if we keep celebrating risk that worked out? Then I ask a different question. Why was I in a position where my best option was faith in strangers, what should have been there that wasn't? Affordable heat repairs, childcare that doesn't cost the world, neighbors who see you as a person and not a problem. Should a motorcycle club be the ones paying off deeds and building restaurants? Or should the people we pay taxes to be better at catching us before we break? Do you think I'm wrong? Tell me. Here's what I know. The night 25 men knocked, I chose to believe they were people, not headlines. 3 days later, 1,500 engines said they believed that about me, too. Martha's kindness brought Danny home. Danny's fever kept him in my living room long enough to be found. A street that had forgotten its own name remembered it long enough to build something worth keeping. Kindness didn't disappear into the air, it piled up inside people until a day came when it roared out and shook the block. So tell me, if it were you at 3:47 a.m., heat out, baby shivering, 25 helmets in the snow, would you open the door? Or would you lock it and pray they left? Was I right to forgive a neighbor who shoved me when my son was sick? Or did I teach her that harm is cheap? Is this the America we want, where strangers have to fill the gaps that systems leave? Or is this proof that we're still capable of showing up for each other when it counts? I'm not handing you answers. I'm handing you a story that fed my family and asking what you see when you hold it up to the light. If this got you feeling anything, drop your city and local time in the comments. Tell me what you would have done. Tell me where you think the line is between wise and reckless, between justice and mercy. Share a time you opened a door for the wrong person and a time you opened it for the right one. Hit like if you believe kindness still comes home, hit. Subscribe if you want more true stories told. Plain turn on the bell so you don't miss the next one, and send this to the friend who needs a reason to believe people can still surprise you. I'll be here tomorrow, flour on my shirt and grease under my nails, because the kitchen is humming and the door is open. Always.